Hi, Heather.
Hi, Reena.
Thank you for doing this, Heather.
Thank you
And
so much for having me.
dear friends, this is Heather. She is an occupational therapist. She graduated from Occupational Therapy College in 1999, and she is the co-owner of the center, which is called On the Ball Pediatric Physio and Occupational Therapy. So I'm welcome, Heather, and we wanted to just have a few discussions about occupational therapy.
Thank you so much.
So, Heather, I just wanted to understand if we could discuss more about self-help skills, and especially with kids who have developmental disorders or who are neurodiverse.
Yes,
So I just wanted to know what is your viewpoint about it, and we could just flow with it.
yes, absolutely. So I believe that working on self-help skills is very important, even from a very young age.
Hmm.
Important to develop these skills in children. It's important to work on feeding skills, dressing, um, even sort of those everyday skills such as, tidying up around the house and picking up toys and whatnot. It gives a child a sense of independence and a sense of self, sense of responsibility. And those are skills that are going to follow children from very early years all the way up to adulthood.
Okay. And Heather, I don't know how is it in Canada, but is there a lot of stress given on developing these skills? How is it? I mean, is there a good balance between therapy and opportunities to participate in self-help skills?
I think that here, the occupational therapists are very much about helping the family to regulate together, to co regulate. And what that means is, teaching the families to, how should I say it, to be able to relax together and to be able to co regulate. Because then, when you actually achieve that, you have better communication skills, the child's more relaxed, and so they respond better to instructions as to what they're supposed to do. And so we use a lot of our sessions to teach the families how to co regulate with their children and actually how to help relax the nervous system so that we can achieve this. And so, whenever I see my families in occupational therapy, I always make the parents a part of the session. And so, I have them come in, I meet with them first, get a good sense of, okay, what do you want to work on? And what are the barriers to this child's independence? And
Wow. Hmm.
that way, I'm able to problem solve with the family what their priorities are.
Hmm. So when you say co-regulation, can you describe a little bit more about it? Because I've been speaking about it in my channel, but for the people who are just listening to it for the first time, if you can elaborate more on what co-regulation means.
So, co regulation is our ability to sort of tap into each other's energy. And when children become very dysregulated, they often will stim. They might flap their hands. They might, their heart rate goes up. They might start sweating, and they might be so dysregulated that they can't. They're in a sense of fight or flight, and they can't communicate properly. And so they often will have extended meltdowns for quite a period of time. And so what happens is that this is very stressful for the families. And the parents often become very dysregulated as well, which further feeds into the dysregulation of the child.
Becomes like a cycle, basically.
It really does.
Mm-hmm.
It really does.
So Heather, is it that is it that you would not work on sensory integration, or how would you combine co-regulation with sensory integration? Because main concerns that parents come to me with, and I would like people who are listening to also understand from your perspective is because self-stimulatory behavior is seen as something that we want to eliminate. We don't want them. That's how it is seen. But can you shed more light on what exactly is self-stimulatory behavior in your opinion?
Well, I see that sort of behavior as being a physiological need of the child. They're trying to communicate that they are dysregulated. It's not that they're doing it on purpose. It's not that it's a behavior that we need to extinguish. It's a signal that we need to be aware of so that we know that the child is dysregulated. I
Hmm.
hope it answers your question.
It does. And what if parents mention that the kids are doing it all through the day at home? Whenever they are free or when they are left alone, then that's all that they do. So, what
Yeah.
would you suggest to such parents in such a case? Because parents' first reaction is stop walking on your toes, put your hands down, don't flap, hands quiet. These are the kind of approaches that not everyone does it, but this is how most parents react because they don't want their child to look different. Nobody would want their child to look different. If you're in a mall or if you're outdoors and if the child does that, everyone looks. So what is it that you would do in such a situation or you would suggest to parents?
Yeah. So, what I would suggest is that they look at it from a neurological perspective. Their child is trying to communicate something that they don't feel calm inside, that they need something. And so if a child is like tapping on their body like this or banging their head, you know, if you really look at that from a behavioral point of view, it's not the child trying to get attention. It's the child perhaps maybe trying to feel where their own body is in space. It's the child, giving themselves that proprioceptive pressure over the body. And what I mean by that is there's actually like research to show that we have these receptors in our muscles and in our joints. And so when a child pushes on their body, they're actually that is a nervous system response to what they need. They're not getting enough of that during the day. And so that's where I really feel occupational therapists can have a huge impact. We always include the families so that we can teach the families why the child is doing this behavior. You know, we kind of lift the veil on, why this may be happening.
Hmm. And
So,
once the parent understands this, what is it that the child would do differently? What I'm trying to ask you is if I see the behavior behaviorally and if I see it neurologically, how would that change the perspective of a parent when he or she is trying to interact, with the child?
I think that it would provide the parent with a different sense of
Mhm.
understanding. They would view their child as having a need to do something in order to regulate. I think it would allow parents the opportunity to understand what's going on in the brain and the body so that they can help their child, and by providing them that sensory motor input during the day so that the child will have less of these episodes. I'm always amazed, Reena, and I'm sure you are too. Once a child leaves a session after working in the sensory motor gym, some of the comments from families are, wow, he was looking at me more. He
Yeah.
was calmer. And
Hmm.
so I love that so that I can teach the family, why this is working. There's a reason. And
Yeah.
so when dysregulation occurs, a lot of families will jump into that fight or flight themselves. And so, we were saying earlier, it further dysregulates the child. And so I think if families are educated on the benefits of what we're doing, it will really help their understanding of what their child's trying to communicate.
Okay. That was really helpful, Heather. But what if parents tell me that when I give the exercises or when I do the session, we see the changes. And the moment we stop the, therapy, then there are no changes at all. The child kind of reverts back to those same behaviors. How would you help parents understand this? And that kind of becomes a little, parents get a little sad because they feel that they have to go on doing therapy for years and years and years. So, would you be able to help us more with that also?
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. And so I think um, what's important is that, it's like a diet. We feed our children, maybe we might make soup or a dinner, and we try and fill that with healthy things. we will put in meat or vegetables that are very healthy. And it's like a nutrient to help the brain focus. We would never think of feeding our children junk food all day. And so it's the same thing when it comes to a sensory diet. This is important for your child in order to help them regulate and learn and grow. And so if we can work regularly on these exercises, the brain can change, a very neuroplastic brain. And so it's important that, people realize that it's just a part of their everyday routine.
Yeah, yeah. And once it changes, it may not be needed to continue those same exercises over and over again, right? Because the structure would change, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
The other thing that I would like to ask you is, so, there are parents who go for occupational therapy sessions where the work is being done on the child, but there's no change at all in the child for like months and months. And it's the same set of activities that are done with the child. So what would be your opinion if they go to such a place? How would they know whether they are at a right place, doing the right kind of occupational therapy?
I think it comes back to goals, and what are the goals for your child? What would you like to help them with? Um, I really believe that it takes a whole team in order to take care of these children. And so sometimes children, they may need physiotherapy, they may need to see a nutritionist, an occupational therapist. And so to spread out those things and work on different aspects of the child's health will certainly help with that.
Okay. Okay. But then, so if I take only the occupational therapy perspective here, and if they're going to a therapist and they're seeing no gains at all, and so what is it that they should be looking for? As in, is there something like a checklist that you have in mind that they should be careful about when they go for occupational therapy services?
A specific checklist?
I don't mean a specific checklist. What I mean is some things that they should be taking care of. Okay, are the goals set? Are the goals being reviewed? Is my child making gains? So such kinds of things. Do you have something in mind that you can share for parents who are listening?
We do. At our center, we make goals for the families and we work on those goals. I guess if we were finding that there was no change in the child, we would wonder, you know, are the parents carrying through with the recommendations at home? Is the child regulating with the family at home in order to be able to improve?
Mm-hmm. Great. So that was amazing. And Heather, I would like to ask you, what about this lockdown? I mean, everybody's at home. Do you have some ideas that you can share with parents about what are the things that they can do? How can they use this time in the best way with their children? If you have some tips for that.
So it's very hard. Even here in Canada, we're locked down. We can't go anywhere. It's hard. Children are out of their schedule, particularly children who really crave that routine. And I think the biggest message is to have families just spend some quality time with their child. So co-regulate. And so we had talked a little bit about that, being able to regulate your own nervous system and just relax and really just spend some quality time with your child. Because the more regulated you are, the more regulated your child will be. And so I think that that's very important during this time. Obviously, we're all under an enormous amount of stress. And also to limit the screen time. I'm not sure what it's like in India, but here in Canada, there's a lot of use of video games. And so children are on those video games for a lot of the day. Not to mention the fact that all of the lessons are being delivered on the computer.
Yes.
And so,
Mm.
so what happens is that the children are, being stimulated. Their brains are being stimulated a lot by the use of the screens. And so I think if families could limit the amount of screen time that the children have, I think there would be a big improvement in regulation.
Great. So that was nice chatting with you, Heather. Thank you
Thank you so
so
much.
much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.